It is conference championship week in the NFL, or as all of us in the division call, a week of envy on the NFC West Huddle. I'm Aaron Levine in Seattle, joined by our friends in San Francisco, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. Today we've got Keyshawn Ward, Robbie Baker, and Gerard Moncure with us. This week, it's the Commanders and Eagles in the NFC Championship, the Bills and Chiefs in the AFC title game. So we start with our first topic. Do the majority of fans of your team have a rooting interest for a specific reason for any of the teams playing this weekend? And if so, why? Keyshawn, I'll let you start us off. By the way, love the shirt representing your alma mater in North Carolina, I believe. Do Niners fans have a rooting interest this weekend?
Man, Aaron, they want anybody but the Kansas City Chiefs. They have been the roadblock for the 49ers for completing their quest for 6. You know, the Chiefs have beaten them 6 straight times since 2014. So the last thing Niner fans want to see is Chiefs host another Lombardi trophy. And I think that, you know, it'd be pretty cool to see somebody else do it. So they'll take the Eagles, the Bills, the Commanders, just not the Chiefs.
Gerard, you're up next. Who are the majority of Rams fans rooting for?
Well, when you lose to the team that is in the championship game, which is the Eagles, I think there's a natural pushback that you want that team to probably lose. It was a close game. The Rams could have won. But here's a bigger factor. I'd say a lot of Rams fans, Angelinos, native Angelinos, will be rooting for the Washington Commanders, not only in Sunday's NFC Championship game, but if they were to win that game, the Super Bowl. Why? Because of quarterback Jaden Daniels. He's a Cajon High grad, which is San Bernardino, which is outside of LA, but it's still considered part of Southern California. He's a great kid, comes from a solid mother, Heisman Trophy winner. He's well liked around the league, and Angelinos basically see him as one of their own. So I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders. Rams fans would probably like to see the Eagles lose, and they'd be rooting also for Daniels as well.
Yeah, and to your point, Bobby Wagner from the Ontario area in Southern California as well. So I'll go next. If you're a Seahawks fan, you are also rooting for the Washington Commanders, not just because of the obvious ones like Wagner and head coach Dan Quinn, who were with the Seahawks organization during their Super Bowl run, and specifically Wagner, who spent most of his career here. Really excited that 10 years after playing in his last NFC Championship game, he gets to do so again. But look at the coaches on this team. Their wide receivers coach is Bobby Ingram, 7th all-time in Seahawks franchise history in receiving yards. You've got defensive line coach Darryl Tapp, who was a fan favorite when I first got here in 2007. You've got linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr., who didn't work out as defensive coordinator here, but he was the guy who coached Wagner and KJ Wright in the Super Bowls. Even Larry Izzo, the former Seahawks special teams coach, is in Washington. So not only are the Commanders a fun underdog story this season, it's also fun to see Dan Quinn getting it done with a bunch of familiar faces. Remember, Quinn was also a head coaching candidate to replace Pete Carroll last offseason here in Seattle. Maybe a little regret there, but I still think we're happy with Mike McDonald. We will be rooting for Washington this weekend. Robbie, how about the folks in Arizona? Is there a consensus among the fan base?
I think if you're an Arizona sports fan, the worst Super Bowl matchup could be Washington, or would be Washington and Kansas City, just because of the number of connections that the Cardinals and Arizona State has to those two teams. You guys already mentioned Jaden Daniels. Well, he was at Arizona State and then left Arizona State to then win a Heisman and get drafted in the top 5 of the NFL draft. And then if it is Kansas City and Washington in the Super Bowl, you would have Zach Ertz, Cliff Kingsbury, DJ Humphries, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hollywood Brown all playing in the Super Bowl potentially. I'm not sure if that would go over very well with Cardinals fans.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Very fair. Up next, time for predictions for this weekend's games. Gerard, you're up first. Who you got this weekend and why?
Well, the Commanders and Eagles obviously split their regular season matchups. The Commanders lost in Week 11, 26-18 in Philadelphia. Pretty decent game. And then they beat the Eagles the second time around in Week 16, I believe, 36-33, a little bit of a shootout. But I think the nod for me has to go to the Eagles. I just think they're the better team offensively, defensively. Had Detroit run the ball more, we probably wouldn't even have Washington in this game. It would probably be the Lions, in my opinion. So I think the Eagles win probably a close game, 27-24, something like that. And in the second game, I think the Bills beat the Chiefs earlier this year in Buffalo. Obviously, it's a little bit different when you've got to play at Kansas City, but I just feel like my gut's telling me that this is the year the Bills get over the hump. Kansas City has won so many close games this year. You have to respect that. They find a way to win, but I just feel in my gut that this is a year Buffalo gets back to the Super Bowl. And in my opinion, I think they're going to win the whole thing. We got a close look at them here at SoFi earlier in the year, and the Rams barely escaped getting that victory against them. I didn't feel like the Rams would be able to beat them again if they made it. But I'm picking the Bills, and I am picking the Eagles to play in the next Super Bowl.
And he's taking the Bills to win it all. I love that. Robbie, you're next. Who advances to Super Bowl 59 and why?
It's tough to pick against the Commanders right now because they are arguably the hottest team in football right now, and the way that Jaden Daniels has been so composed in late game situations and leading the Commanders to wins in those one-score games down the stretch here. But I think the Eagles will get it done. They have obviously more experience being in this position. They have the home field advantage. I think the Eagles advance to the Super Bowl. And then it's impossible to pick against KC. Gerard, you mentioned it. They've played in so many close games this year, but they've won them all. And with Patrick Mahomes in this position in the playoffs, it's just so hard to pick against them, especially when they're at home. And if my memory serves correct, in the last couple of seasons, Josh Allen 4-0 in the regular season against the Kansas City Chiefs, but has not beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. So until it happens, it's hard for me to pick it to happen. So I think it'll be the Chiefs and the Eagles, a Super Bowl rematch from a few years ago.
So I will break that tie. I'm actually going to go with Gerard on this one. I'll go next. As much as I said I would be rooting for the Commanders, the Eagles really impressed me last week. They were facing a Rams team with all that momentum, an entire city to play for amidst those wildfires down in Southern California. And the Eagles still had enough to pull it out in the end. I also understand these are two teams that know each other very well in the division. Washington actually beat the Eagles the last time they played. But when push comes to shove, I feel like Philly has the best team when it comes to all three facets of the game. They have the more experienced quarterback as well. They have the better offensive line. I think these small things end up pushing them over the top. I will take the Eagles in the NFC. In the AFC, I just want something different. I mean, we've seen the Chiefs there year after year. I think Buffalo's the more complete team this time around. I think the point spread reflects that as well, even though Buffalo's a 1.5 underdog. That means the Bills would be favored on a neutral field. So look for Josh Allen to finally get it done against these guys. I'm going to take the Bills on the road in KC to end any talk of a three-peat in the Midwest. Keyshawn, who do you think's headed to face each other in New Orleans in a couple weeks on Fox?
Well, starting with the AFC, I'm going to ride with you and Gerard on the same sentiment. I just think that this is going to be the final year. And plus, if y'all been following the NFC West Huddle the past couple weeks, I did say last week, whoever wins the Ravens and Bills game will win the Super Bowl this year. So I gotta be consistent. But, you know, in terms of the game, I just feel like, you know, this rivalry between Mahomes and Josh Allen, it kind of reminds me of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady back in the 2000s. You know, Peyton was 0-3 going into the 2006 AFC Championship, and they were down 21-3 at halftime. But then suddenly, Peyton in the offense, you know, that cost them life. Joseph Adai was able to get them their last touchdown to win the ball game. And I think that's going to be the same thing's going to happen this week between KC and Buffalo. So I got to be consistent. I think the Bills will win the Super Bowl this year, but in terms of the NFC, who he'll meet, I think, you know, my mind is telling me the Eagles, but it's hard not to, you know, ignore my gut because the Commanders, they have been the hottest team, as Robbie mentioned earlier, in the NFL throughout the postseason. But at the end of the day, I just think that the Philly defensive line is going to be a problem for Daniels and the offensive line. And plus, I just think that the Eagles, with having Saquon Barkley, you know, he's like their heavyweight puncher. He's going to knock them out the game. He's going to do what he's been doing all year, was having these home runs and just completely taking the defense out of the game with these long runs and touchdowns. So I think it'll be Buffalo and Philly in Super Bowl 59.
The consensus among the four of us, Buffalo and Philadelphia. Sorry, Robbie, on that one, taking the Chiefs in the AFC. Okay, we're on to the third topic, and turning the focus back to our respective teams. Give me the most impactful player you don't think will be back with your team next season. And Robbie, we'll start with you. Whose time with the Cardinals do you think has come to an end?
It'll be interesting because general manager Monty Austin-Ford and the Cardinals have a lot of cap space to work with this offseason. Are they going to use that to retain guys or go out and add some different pieces? If they go out and add some different pieces, a guy that may not be back would be Kaiser White. And if he doesn't come back, that would be, I think, a negative for this defense because Kaiser played over 90% of the snaps this year. He's the quarterback of that defense. He made about a little over $5 million this year. He had another really good year, so that he probably will command more next year moving forward or whatever his next contract may be. He's an unrestricted free agent entering this offseason. It's hard to know exactly where this team's head is at in terms of if they want to bring in outside guys or retain their own talent, but one maybe insight into that is Nick Rallis had a child at the end of the season, and that child's middle name was Kaiser, after Kaiser White. So maybe that would mean that Kaiser will end up staying here in the Valley. But depending on how much money he commands on the open market, because he had another really solid year at inside linebacker, Kaiser White may be a guy to keep an eye on for Cardinals fans as they enter free agency.
Okay, Keyshawn, you're next. What impact Niners player might not be back next season?
I'm going to say Charvarius Ward. After the Niners' last game in the regular season, when they were cleaning out the lockers, Ward's pretty honest with the reporters. He told everybody, you know, I've had a traumatic experience the past year, losing my daughter here in the Bay Area, and I just don't think that it's going to be a place that me and my girl want to stay, you know, and continue to live out here. Now, you know, he's not going to sit here and say, I don't want to be with the San Francisco 49ers, but, you know, he's going to be open to other options, going elsewhere. And I just think that with the Niners secondary, with, you know, Deommodore Lenoir and Ronaldo Green having good years last year, I can't see the Niners bringing back another expensive corner to have in that secondary. I wasn't saying Dre Greenlaw, you know, because his wife, she had a going away party, and they posted on Instagram, and it seemed like Greenlaw was going to come back, but John Lynch came back the next day and told everybody, we're not going to let Dre go. They're going to make it very interesting by trying to give him the best offer possible to keep him, but for sure, I don't think Ward will be returned to the Niners next year.
It begs the question, is John Lynch on Instagram and checking out all those farewell videos and saying, no, not going anywhere? Got to wonder about that. I will go third. I hate to say this, but I'm really worried that Ernest Jones IV is not in Seattle next season. And regardless of the rhetoric we're hearing from both sides, the first red flag was the fact that they amicably paused negotiations on a long-term deal at the end of this season rather than getting something done. That leaves a lot of ambiguity as to what happens at the start of free agency. We all know Jones was a tackling machine this season. He single-handedly turned this defense around midway through this year. He was the linebacker they needed to fill the right gaps and provide leadership at the second level of the defense. He's probably also going to command about $15 million per season, and you wonder whether that's a number John Schneider will balk at. And if he does, I'm sure another team's going to swoop in and give him what he wants. So listen, if you're the Seahawks, you traded a fourth-round draft pick to get the guy. You've seen the impact he can make on your defense. He's only 25 years old. He wants to be in Seattle. So sign the guy. It makes sense. But if I had to choose anyone who might not be back, impact-wise, it would be Ernest Jones IV. Finally, Gerard, who won't be a member of the Rams next season that had a big impact this year?
Well, Aaron, I gotta add a little something to what you said. You know, Ernest Jones was a tremendous player, and you got to remember that season for him started here. He was traded a week before the season started.
It's amazing.
Basically.
Yep.
Because he wanted a long-term deal, and Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, was not ready to go there yet for the amount of money that he and his agent wanted. So that whole thing with Ernest Jones is going to get real interesting. He was missed here by the Rams defense. All right, talking about this Rams team, the obvious is Cooper Kupp. He is due $29.7 million next year. We don't know if he's injured, and they just haven't let it out. But the production was down this year, 67 catches, 710 yards, 6 touchdowns with a long of 67. In the postseason, 6 catches, 90 yards. Those are not Cooper Kupp numbers. And the bottom line is if they're going to pay him that type of money, the numbers have to be better. They weren't. So they're going to have to restructure that deal, or else Cooper Kupp will not be a Ram. That's how everyone sees that down here.
Yeah, if you're paying him $29.4 million, I can promise you the Seahawks are not going to be paying Tyler Lockett $30+ million next season, which he's scheduled to make. So he most likely won't be back unless they get a short-term minimum deal with him. Lastly, we have the annual NFL honors coming up on Super Bowl week, which includes the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. The nominees include the Cardinals' Trey McBride, the Rams' Kyron Williams, the Niners' Curtis Robinson, and the Seahawks' Uchenna Nwosu. Why should your guy win it all? I'll go first, and let me start by saying no disrespect to any of these four guys. Everything they stand for and what they do to help their local communities are fantastic. I can almost guarantee that none of them will win. Take a look at the list of winners over the years. You'll see a who's who of well-known superstars or guys who have been in the league forever, like Russell Wilson or an Andrew Whitworth or Dak Prescott or J.J. Watt. I don't think any of our four representatives fit that bill this year. But in Uchenna Nwosu's case, I just appreciate how worldly he is with his causes. Everything from helping to rebuild roads and restore electricity in Nigeria in his dad's home village, to going back to his high school, helping hire an athletic trainer and build a training facility there, to doing a lot of local charity work here in Seattle and also with his own foundation. He's one of the good guys when it comes to giving back. So big props to Uchenna. You might not win the national award, but you're definitely deserving of the Seahawks nomination. Gerard, you're next. Why should Kyron Williams win this award?
Well, he is just, as you said about your guy, Aaron, Kyron Williams is just a super individual. He's accessible. He's polite. He's couth, well-mannered. He gathered 7,500 Angelinos and raised $1 million earlier this year to help the fight against poverty in South Central LA. He is just a super person on and off the field. It's interesting when a guy makes a mistake in a big game like he did against the Eagles with that fumble. Normally, the storm clouds come and people want him gone. Mark Andrews took a lot of heat in Baltimore. You know what? There hasn't been very much heat this past week on Kyron, and he's had a little bit of fumble issue, but that's because people know the quality individual he is on and off the field. Angelinos love him. The Rams coaching staff loves him. I can't tell you how delightful the guy is to deal with on the everyday. I'm hoping he wins, but as you said, it's a very difficult award to win, Aaron. So I don't really know. But in my eyes, the guy is more than worthy.
Absolutely, and his actions certainly speak volumes there. Keyshawn, you're stumping for Curtis Robinson in San Francisco. Why is he deserving of the national award?
Well, Aaron, Curtis Robinson is the definition of a selfless person. Literally days after he tore his ACL, you know where he was at? He was at the Children's Hospital helping people on crutches. People made a big thing out of it, but Curtis was like, I may be going through tough times, but that doesn't mean other people can't, get some of my help. And then even when he just became a 49er, one of the first people he went to go look for in the building was a community relations manager trying to figure out ways to help the community in the Bay Area. So, he's always at any community event you could think of that's going around here, and that's why all the 49ers say it's a no-brainer that he should be the Walter Payton Man of the Year.
Very cool story there. And Robbie, Trey McBride might not use his head or helmet in the best manner in the end zone, and yes, I'm still bitter. But why does he deserve the Payton Man of the Year award?
Well, I do agree, Aaron. It may be a bit of an uphill battle for our four nominees, but kind of like Kyron Williams out in Los Angeles, Trey McBride, in just the short time he's been in the NFL, has become kind of the go-to guy in the locker room. He's so great to deal with. He's always available. And I bring that up, too, because Trey had kind of an interesting season because statistically the yardage and everything was there, but it took until, I think, the second to last week of the year for him to record a receiving touchdown this year. So he had a lot of those questions to answer, and obviously the second half of the year was difficult for the Cardinals, but Trey was always the consummate professional and great to deal with throughout all that. And then when it comes to off-the-field stuff, Trey has been big with girls flag football here in Arizona. That's now a sanctioned high school sport in Arizona, and Trey has been very involved with that and attending games and doing coin tosses for things of that nature. He does his holiday toy drive at the Christmas time here in the Valley. So it may be an uphill battle for him to get the official Walter Payton Man of the Year award, but much like the other nominees you guys all stumped for, Trey very well deserving of the Cardinals nomination here.
He's also going to have to give us hints up here in the state of Washington how to get it sanctioned girls flag football, since it lost a vote in the WIAA for the same thing last year. That is going to do it for us. A reminder to check out the NFC Championship game on Fox this Sunday, and a reminder you can access all of our episodes on the Fox Local app. Thanks to everybody here, and we will see you guys next week.